عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Jazakallah everyone for joining us this week. We have our beloved resident scholar, Sheikh Abdul Hamid Kish, joining us today. But before we begin our talk for today, we're going to start with the beautiful words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And with that, I'd like to ask one of the young Al-Falahs, Musab and Hafiz, to recite from the Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
ما شاء الله Musab.
بارك الله فيك.
Nice rendition.
Beautiful recitation. So today we're going to join my beloved brother Sheikh Abdul Hamid Kish. Inshallah, he's going to be giving us a talk on the concept of Halal and Haram in Islam, inshallah. So without further ado, let's have our beloved Sheikh.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم عبد الله ورسوله ما بعد. Thank you very much for coming to this youth halaqa. And as I said the first time we met, I think a couple of weeks ago, that any society that must thrive and survive needs to harness the power of the young ones. And if we have 10, 15 young men in our midst who are always interested in the deen, and then they are very much well versed in the deen, then alhamdulillah, our communities have a future. But if the young men are only interested in the games and just running around, then we have a serious problem. If you go into the community of the Sahaba, you find out that most of them were young men. When the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ died, how old was Ibn Abbas? Can anybody help us? How old was Ibn Abbas when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ died? Abdullah ibn Abbas, how old was he? He was 13. 13. And imagine the number of hadith he reported from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. But then he was 13 when the Prophet died. He was born just 2 years before Hijrah. And then he memorized all this information. And then it got to a point where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ prayed for him. He said, Allahumma allimhu ta'wil, faqihu fi din wa allimhu ta'wil. Ya Allah, give him understanding of the deen, and then also grant him the power of interpretation or explanation of the Quran. So it gladdens my heart that young people like myself, guys, don't be confused. I'm not as old as your fathers. No, I'm a young man like yourself. Maybe I might be older than you a couple of years, but I'm also young like you are. So I'm very happy. And alhamdulillah, anywhere I go across my travels, across the world, you go into Masjid and you find young men at the forefront of things. And alhamdulillah. The other thing is, I want to thank our father and our Sheikh, Imam Abdul Latif, for taking time out of his busy schedule to be with us. And I'm not saying this because he's here, but if we have fathers like him in the community who are always open up to the youth, are very much concerned about the legacy they're leaving behind, because they know definitely that they're not going to be here forever. So they're preparing the next generation to take over from them. We ask the Almighty Allah to grant him more health and more life, that we can drink from his wisdom. Today is a Sunday, I believe the 18th day of Rabiul Awwal. I think so. 18th day of Rabiul Awwal, 1443 years after the Hijrah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and 24th October 2021. We are going to speak about the concept of halal and haram. This is a very huge subject, a very, very broad topic that we can't cover in a sitting. Even looking at the definition of halal and haram itself is a whole course on its own. So we just try and cherry pick what we think is, relevant to our time and our age, and even to us as young men who are trying to, please the Almighty Allah. Rules and regulations always serve as a means to maintain law and order. Without rules and regulations, societies will crumble. There's a reason why there is a traffic signal there, and there's a reason why there are traffic lights, and there's a reason why there are patrol policemen, so that the laws will be obeyed, so that the community will be in order. Rules and regulations instill discipline in the community, because without rules and regulations, everybody can do whatever they want to do. So Islam, like any other community, has its own rules and regulations that it wants its adherents to follow. And without these rules and regulations, law and order in Islam will not prevail. Islam looks at a three-dimensional relationship. That is the relationship between you, the human being, and Allah, the relationship between you and yourself, and then the relationship between you and the environment. So the rules and regulations in Islam cover these three relationships, whereby the relationship with you and Allah has its rules and regulations that you must follow. The relationship between you and yourself also have rules that you must follow. And then the relationship between yourself and the environment. I didn't say yourself and the fellow human being. I said yourself and the environment, because in animals, you must have a kind of relationship with the animals that Islam even takes care of. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting in Medina, and a camel came crying. A camel was weeping. It came and then it whispered some words in the ears of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It had brought a complaint. Its master was punishing it severely, giving it loads it can't carry. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his face just turned red, and he had to look for the master of the camel and then talk to him. So in Islam, our relationship with animals, there are rulings on that. If you take the book of fiqh, you find out that we have rules on that. So basically, halal and haram in Islam are basically do's and don'ts. And we all know do's and don'ts. And I'm not going to go, deep into, the definition of halal, the linguistic meaning. I'm just going to touch on it. When the Arabs say halal, or when they say haram, let's understand one thing. We all know that not all Arabs are Muslims, especially those of us here in Michigan can attest to that fact. They have what they call, in Islamic theology, we have something when we are doing a research work or writing a paper, and then we come to a word. We first of all give the meaning of the word within the Arabic language, what it means to the Arabs. And then we come and give the meaning of the word within the context of the Islamic law. For example, if you say as-salat in the Arabic language, it means a dua. But then within Islamic law, it means prostrating salah, and you know that. So in the Arabic language, when they say haram, they mean something that is sacred, something that is sacrosanct, something that is untouchable. That is why the Masjid in Makkah is called Masjid al-Haram. It doesn't mean Haram Masjid. No, that's not what it means. It means a holy or sacred or sacrosanct place. So this is the linguistic meaning of haram. And that linguistic meaning has been borrowed into Islamic theology. So when they say something is haram, it means something that you must not touch, something that you must not go near to. When they say halal, halal within Islamic or within the Arabic language itself is the same thing. It doesn't change. Because sometimes you find out that the word within the Arabic language has a different meaning, and then when it comes to Islamic theology, the meaning changes. There are a lot of examples to that. But halal is the same within the Arabic language and within Islamic theology. It means something that is legitimate, something that is permissible, something that is allowed, something that is authorized. You can do it. And let's understand one thing. When Islam brings rules or regulations, or when a community, enacts laws, it is not to put the constituents of the community in discomfort. No. When traffic rules say you can't go beyond 25, it is not to put you under discomfort or frustrate you or irritate you. It's to maintain law and order. So sometimes you might be in a hurry. For example, you might be coming to the masjid and you're late and then you want to overspeed. You might end up causing a confusion. You might get a ticket. You might waste time more in trying to get to the masjid early. So Islam's rules and regulations is not for discomfort or irritating Muslims or putting Muslims under lock and key. Because if you observe Islamic theology, you realize that the Almighty Allah educates the community before He gives the laws. So if you observe the Meccan period, you realize that there were no laws in terms of do's and don'ts. It was all about teaching them about Aqidah, about who Allah is. That was all the Meccan period was all about. It was in the Medina period where you get the Halal and the Haram, do's and don'ts, and then punishments. So you realize sometimes some of these, organizations, I don't know what to call them. I don't want to mention names, but some people just, they come to power in the Middle East or somewhere in the world, and then they want to implement Sharia, and then they'll fail woefully. Do you know why? Because they didn't go through the process that the Muslim community needs. That is educating the people. For example, if we decide to, implement Islamic law in our community, we can't just go about with sticks flogging women on the street because they are not wearing hijab. No. That's not the first step. What you do is you educate the people. You give them the tools, you empower them. Aisha radiallahu anha narrates for us a hadith that Imam al-Bukhari, that she said, إِنَّمَا نَزَلَ أَوَّلَ مَا نَزَلَ مِنْهُ سُورَةٌ مِنَ الْمُفَصَّلِ فِيهَا ذِكْرُ الْجَنَّةِ وَالنَّارِ حَتَّى إِذَا ثَابَ النَّاسُ إِلَى الْإِسْلَامِ نَزَلَ الْحَلَالُ وَالْحَرَامُ. She said the first that was revealed in the Quran are issues concerning Jannah and Nar. When the people became established in Islam, that is when the halal and the haram was revealed. وَلَوْ نَزَلَ أَوَّلَ شَيْءٍ لَا تَشْرَبُ الْخَمْرِ. If the first rule was to be, do not drink alcohol, it will have failed. Imagine the people in the 7th century who were drinking alcohol, who were fornicating, who were cheating, who were doing all kinds of bad things. And then the first message that Islam comes with is, don't drink alcohol. Imagine the United States here now. And then tomorrow, the state of Michigan says, no alcohol. What do you think is going to happen? It's not going to work. In the 1920s or 1930s, the United States wanted to ban alcohol. The government failed woefully. People ended up producing alcohol in their homes to drink. So some of these, organizations, I don't know if they are organizations, I don't know what to call them, whether they are in Mali, whether they are in Syria, whether they are in Somalia, whether they are in Syria, whether they are in Yemen, who want to implement the Sharia. most often than not, they fail woefully because they don't have this, long perception or long vision about what Islam really entails. They are only interested in the punitive aspects of Islamic Sharia. We're chopping hands, we're flogging people, we're chopping heads. That's what they want. They're just there to punish people. But then the Sharia didn't come to punish people. No, it came to reform people. And you find out that the punitive aspect of our Sharia is the smallest when it comes to Sharia in terms of size, in terms of number. But then the other aspect is very, very wide. Aisha radiallahu anha said, if the first that has been revealed was don't drink alcohol, don't commit adultery, the people will have rebelled. Nobody will have accepted Islam. If you observe the Sharia, it was revealed within a 23-year lifespan, 23 years. So if we want to implement something, we need to look at it from that perspective that it will take time, it's gradual. If you take, for example, the prohibition of alcohol in the Quran, the Almighty Allah didn't just go straight for don't drink alcohol. No, it took stages. So at-tadarruj fi at-tashri', that is, a gradual information or gradual education in the Sharia is a very, very important tool. The other point we are going to talk about is that the Sharia or Halal and Haram are clear and straightforward. There's no ambiguity in there. The hadith of Nu'man ibn Bashir that Imam al-Bukhari narrates, where the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Al-halalu bayyinun wal-haram bayyin." Halal is clear and haram is clear. But then there is a gray area. بينهما أمور مشتبهات. There is a gray area within the halal and the haram spectrum. Almost everything about the Muslim is about halal and haram. Yes. But then there is a place, a gray area where you get confused whether it is haram or it is halal. What do you do? Or an incident might happen and then you don't know where to place it. Is it halal or it is haram? The scholars are saying this is something in Usul al-Fiqh is very broad, but I just want to summarize it for you. Anytime there is a clash between halal and haram, haram takes precedence. Anytime there is a clash between halal and haram, that this thing, is it halal or is it haram? Haram takes precedence. Because if that thing ends up being haram and then you do it, you've committed a sin. How we get it? For example, let's say using this pen. We are confused whether using this pen is halal or is haram. Haram takes precedence because if it's not halal and then we end up saying we can use the pen, then we are committing a sin. But if it is halal for us to use the pen and then we don't use the pen, we have not committed a sin. I hope you get it. Halal is sometimes compulsory and sometimes not compulsory. I'll come and explain that later. There's a point for that. Halal sometimes is compulsory, sometimes not compulsory, depending on the ahkam takalif, on the laws that Islam, enacts. But haram, whether we like it or not, it is haram. There is no nuance there. It's clear. So it's straightforward. It's clear. There is no ambiguity, but then there are gray areas that must be avoided. The hadith is very, very clear. فَمَنِ اتَّقَى الشُّبُهَاتِ فَقَدْ اسْتَبْرَأَ لِدِينِهِ وَعِرْضِهِ. Anybody who is mindful of the gray areas, of the confusing areas, then he has protected his deen and his reputation. Everything in this world is halal. Al-aslu fil ashya al-ibaha. Everything in this world is halal, except what the Sharia has come to declare haram. In our day-to-day dealings, in food, in occupation, in lifestyle, everything is halal. except where the Sharia has come to make an explicit, point that this is haram, then it becomes haram. But then when it comes to ibadah, worship, everything is haram except what the Sharia has come for us to do. I hope you get the difference. In our day-to-day activities, anything that does not have any connection with ibadah is halal, except where the Sharia comes to say it is haram. But then in ibadah, in worship, everything is haram, except where the Sharia comes and then says, this is ibadah, this is a mode of worship, then you use it and worship the Almighty Allah. For example, press ups. You can see a lot of you go to the gym. You have six-pack guys here, and some of us are the one-pack guys. Everybody must have, everything must have followers. So some of us have chosen to follow the one-pack path. Some of you want to follow the six-pack packs. No problem. Hunger will kill you. That's just by the way. Press-ups. Is it a form of ibadah? It's not a form of ibadah. It's halal. Because there is no nas in the Sharia that comes to say press-ups or running around is haram. I hope you get it. But then, if someone comes today and then he says, press ups, if you press up 10 times, you get 25 rewards in the deen. Are you getting the analogy or the example I'm trying to give? What then that this doesn't become? We say, no, we won't accept it. Because nothing in the Sharia says press ups. When you do it, you get this reward in terms of your spiritual uplifting. I hope you get it. So, in worldly affairs, everything is halal except what the Sharia has come to say haram. So we innovate in technology is halal. We build high sky rising buildings is halal. Except where the Sharia comes to say it is haram. The other point, or the next point, I believe is a very, very dangerous point, and I'll spend some time talking about that. Let's be very careful when we are speaking about haram and halal. Sometimes on the social media, young men, haram, halal, haram, 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 haram. You read one book or half a page and then he becomes a mufti straight forward and everything is haram. Let's be very careful, young men. The Almighty Allah says in Surah Al-Nahl, وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَا تَصِفُ أَلْسِنَتُكُمُ الْكَذِبَ هَذَا حَلَالٌ وَهَذَا حَرَامٌ لِتَفْتَرُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَفْتَرُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ لَا يُفْلِحُونَ. And do not say about what your tongues are set of untruth. Let's be very careful. Allah. Especially, you see, when you say something is halal or something is haram, you are giving a verdict on behalf of the Almighty Allah. That's where the danger is. If you say something is halal or something is haram, you are no longer speaking out of your own volition. You are speaking on behalf of the Almighty Allah. So the moment you make an assertion that is wrong, and you know very well that it is wrong, then be very careful. That is number one. Number two, even those who have studied do not have that liberty to just declare things haram or halal. Before we say something is especially haram, before we say something is haram, in-depth, study and wide consultation of scholars are done before you come up with something that this haram, especially in these are times that there are some things that they were not there during the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For example, something like organ donation. Organ donation. When did we start organ donation? I think it's the 21st century or 20th century. So, what is the ruling of organ donation in Islam? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't do it. Haram. Who told you that? It is a contemporary subject. Then the Muslim jurists will sit down and then they look at it. What benefit does it bring? What are the harms in there? Okay, then they discuss and then they look for rulings in the Sharia to whether either to allow it or to prohibit it. Artificial insemination is also another example of contemporary issues that started recently. What is it? Is it haram or is it halal? They give rulings to guide it. So, for example, with artificial insemination, the scholars are saying, first and foremost, it must be between the husband and the wife. So there's nothing like surrogate mothers in Islam. Islam doesn't acknowledge surrogate mothers, where we pick the sperm of a man and then we put it in the womb of an unknown woman she's just interested in getting money. She carries the baby and then she gives birth and then you pay her. And then she has no whether legal or even biological link with the child. She gives birth and then she's gone. You give her $20,000 or $50,000 and then she's gone. Islam doesn't acknowledge that. Artificial insemination, the scholars are saying, first, it must be the spermatozoa of the man, of the husband, with the ovaries of the wife, in the womb of the wife. So, my brothers, be very careful when something just pops up, even in the conversations that you're having as friends or as brothers, and someone does something. Wallahi, be very careful. Don't let your emotions override you and then you declare things haram. The other thing is, don't let your emotions override you and then declare your fellow brother kafir. That's also another danger that young men we are involved in. Sometimes the zeal and then the passion of the religion. You've heard, a latest, lecture by any of our scholars, and he just makes a point, and you have been pondering over the point for a while now, and that's the catchy. Ridwan, that I told you were a kafir. No, it's very dangerous. I want us to learn something. That is, let's always try and, as much as possible, to find excuses for each other. Okay? It's a character trait that Muslims must learn. Try and find excuses for each other. Malik ibn Dinar, yes, he said, if you smell alcohol on the beard of your brother, don't assume he drank alcohol. Assume someone spilled alcohol on his beard. That is why his beard is reeking of alcohol. Is there any optimism of a brother higher than this? No. One of the Sahaba would be brought, he would drink alcohol and be drunk. And then he will be lashed, he will be flogged during the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The next day, he will go back and drink again. And then he will be brought to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then he will be punished. The next day, he will go and drink again. And then he will be punished. Look at this story. Medina, and the Prophet was alive, and people were drinking alcohol, and then they were Muslims. I'm not saying you go and drink alcohol because alcohol was drunk during the Prophet Muhammad's time. No, don't get me wrong. All I'm saying is, let's find excuses for each other. Some of the Sahaba were like, what kind of person are you? You go and drink every day and then you'll be beaten. You will still drink. Oh, and they started cursing him. And the Prophet Muhammad said, no, don't curse him, guys. Even though he drinks, but me, I know he loves Allah and the Prophet. He loves Allah and the Prophet. So my brothers, let's speak about people with positivity. It's a Muslim character trait. Let's not be, in a hurry to cast our judgmental swords or pens on people and take them out of the fold of Islam. I think it's a subject we might discuss another time. Takfir, declaring, people as kuffar, Muslims as kuffar. It's something that maybe another time we will talk about that, because it is something that has been raging on for ages, for centuries, but it's something that has, cropped its head up again, and you find young men they read just one or two books in fiqh or aqidah, and they think they are the only Muslims. I saw a video of someone on YouTube. He said he's the only Muslim in the world. Say he's the only Muslim. Everybody else is going to Jahannam. He's the only Muslim in the world. And I said, yes, this guy is the only Muslim in the world. And Jannah will be very, very empty since he's the only one who is going to enter it. So this point is a very, very important point for me. The other point in relation to this point is, young men, wallahi, let's study our religion. Let's study our religion. I don't mean just surface reading, but no, let's have time to study our religion. Especially here in Michigan, wallahi, you guys do not have any excuse, because almost every day Islamic institutions are springing up here and there. Yes, you know it. Islamic institutions are springing up here and there, and then they're giving you the opportunities to study in person or even online. In the United States, we have a lot of Islamic institutions that are teaching quality Islamic education. Wallahi, quality Islamic education. And there are a lot of online universities that you can study. Wallahi, don't misuse your times, especially those of us here in the West. Don't get to an age whereby you bite your fingers, because you go to the office and then the Muslims are asking questions about Islam, and then you are clueless. Wallahi, it's painful. Study your religion. You can be a medical officer at the same time someone who knows Islam. We need that. We need that. All of us cannot be shuyukhs mounting the mimbar every Friday. No, all of us cannot do that. But then all of us can have our own private pulpits in our private careers, giving Islam out. So wallahi, let's study. Let's study. This religion is a religion of knowledge. And there is no dangerous person in this world to Islam than the ignorant Muslim. The most dangerous Muslim in the world to Islam is the ignorant Muslim who doesn't study Islam, but he thinks that he knows. So he will just be dishing, fatwas left, right, and center. And be very careful. The fact that there is Sheikh Google or there's Mufti Facebook doesn't mean straightforward. You just Google, Google, and then, oh, it's haram. Oh, please be very careful. Let's study. And then make sure you have a contact point of a scholar who you call from time to time to ask the questions. It's very important. Don't just pick anything from Google. No. Because Google will give you the information but not the knowledge. Let me demonstrate. You can Google how to build a car, right? It will give you the steps, but then it won't teach you the knowledge of building the car. You see the GPS that we use, it should show you the direction. Even they are advanced to this point that you will get notifications that there is a policeman on the road, right? Yes, that's what they do, so that you stop overspeeding. But then it won't tell you that on the corner street there is an old lady crossing the street. Will it tell you? It can't tell you that. That's knowledge. That is something that you must be there. So when it comes to Islamic knowledge, wallahi, let's study. It's very, very broad. It's very, very deep. It's very, very beautiful too. The other point is that some activities are inherently haram on their own. For example, drinking alcohol is haram on its own. It doesn't need any external conditions to make it haram. The act itself is haram. But there are some haram activities that it's not within itself as haram, but it leads to haram. For example, I can use a walking stick to walk, and that same stick can be used to hit someone, to hurt the person. So that stick in itself is not haram. But then the act that we use the stick for can either be haram or it can be halal. It's very clear. This haram halal issue is not just straightforward, straight jacket, no flexibility. No, there's flexibility in it. Conditions and situations bring exceptions in the rule. So, for example, something might be haram, but then conditions and necessities can change it to make it halal. So there is a legal maxim in fiqh that says الضرورات تبيح المحظورات, that conditions and situations will make prohibitions lawful. But then والضرورات تقدر بقدرها, that these conditions and situations must be of merit. For example, pork can become halal in some situations, but those situations must be of merit. If it is a life and death issue, then you can get your bacon, your ham and cheese, then you get your, is it Jack Daniels or Hennessy, and then, but تقدر بقدرها, the amount that is enough to keep you alive is what is halal for you. But even that does not make the pork halal at that time. It's still haram. Understand one thing. Don't say the sheikh said pork can turn. No, the pork will not turn into halal. No. Its eating at that time becomes the halal, not the I hope you understand. These things are very technical. Situations and conditions can make halal stuff haram, yes. Salat in the masjid is halal. But then when there is a sandstorm or there is a hurricane, coming to the masjid becomes haram. You get it, guys? Why does it become haram? Because your life is at stake. Someone will say, coming to the masjid too? Yes. In usul al-fiqh, in the fundamentals of fiqh, all these things are something you must learn before you get up to say something is halal or haram. That's why I told you, saying something is haram or halal without knowledge is the most dangerous thing to say. Dangerous thing to do. Wallahi, it's like doing neurosurgery. That's the most dangerous surgery, neurosurgery. Declaring something halal or haram is as dangerous as neurosurgery. Because of your statement, someone might be on an activity that will lead him to hell. Because of your statement. Because of your statement, you will deny someone of an activity. If that person had continued that activity, it will have been a means of obtaining the rahmah of Allah and enter Jannah. Because of your statement. So there are exceptions to the rule. It's not just straight jacket. Oh, it is haram. There was an issue in a place back home in Ghana where someone who was not a scholar, he loved the deen. He was a scholar. Before that, let's give an example of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam before I give my example. You know the story of the man who killed 99 people? Yes, he killed 99 people. فَذَهَبَ إِلَى الرَّاهِبِ, and then he went to meet someone who was a worshipper. I've killed 99 people. Will Allah forgive me? He said, 99. There's no hope for you. You are damaged goods beyond repair. So he just killed him to make him 100. And the hadith said, فَذَهَبَ إِلَى habrin. And then he went to meet a scholar. So it's very, very important. It's only scholars that we ask their opinions of in issues of knowledge. I am not a medical officer. Don't come and ask me or tell me you are sick that I should give you a prescription. I will give you a concoction that when you drink, you will die. I hope you get it, guys. So it's a scholar who is supposed to speak about these issues. Let's go back to my example. This man went onto the television and then he was speaking about riba, interest, usury. And then a caller called and then asked, my mother is sick in the hospital. And then she must be operated upon. And the doctor said, if I don't bring this money, she will not be operated upon. And I went around looking for Qard Hassan of, an Islamic loan or a loan, an interest-free loan, and nobody was willing to give me an interest-free loan. Can I go to the non-Muslim bank and take a loan with interest so that my mother will be operated upon? And the doctors are saying if she's operated upon, the chances of her survival is about 80 to 90%. He said, no, it is haram. Leave your mother to die. Because it's riba. So it's haram. There's no way, there's nothing you can do about it. So there are exceptions to the rule. Okay? Some things, they are halal, and the situations and conditions change them to haram. And some things are haram, and the situations and conditions change them to, halal. There are a lot of points I have for us here to discuss, but I think you have questions, and your questions will help a lot in trying to, explain some things, because concept of halal and haram is not something that we can discuss, in one sitting. Thank you very much for listening to us. Jazakumullahu khairan, barakallahu fikum. I've been speaking about for 40 minutes. I think it's enough. And if you have questions, I know definitely you have questions. And I hope your questions will be practical questions so that we can answer them. Thank you very much for listening to us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Any questions? No, you have a question. You have a question. I'll prefer a question related to the subject matter, but if you have questions that are not related to the subject matter, we'll ask if I don't know, our father is here, he's going to help us. He's going to help us.
Can I ask the Benzi where? Ask him.
Anyone have any questions on the topic? No one?
Is it that I did a good job that you don't have questions, or I did a bad job that you're confused? Yeah.
Appreciate you,
Jazakumullah khairan, inshallah. Khairan.
If we haven't said yet, of course, we welcome you to
Khairan.
being my resident scholar. It's an honor and privilege to have you here, and we look forward to working with you more in the future,
Inshallah.
Inshallah. More gatherings like this, inshallah.
Khairan.
We're also joined by our beloved Imam, so we'd also like to have him give us a few words of wisdom before we
Very good, very inspiring, and the first sitting is beautiful.
Can you turn?
He talks from details. Alhamdulillah, very good, very good. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him. The situation is we're getting in details. But he already cleared so many things. I'll say only two things. Normally, what do you think? Anything on this side is halal, right? This is halal. Anything on this side is haram, right? But when he said halal and haram, sometimes as on the right things, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you know this hadith. What Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam one day he took a stick and drew a line, and then so many lines on the right side, so many on the left side. So obviously everybody knows those are the lines, small lines are the right lines, and those are the bad lines. This will take you Jannah, that will take you Jahannam. No, sabda, therefore when it mentioned halal, when it's halal and haram, you have to be very careful. You say haram, and even if you don't do it, you'll be sinning. But with halal, if you don't do, it's alhamdulillah. So, right, small lines looks like definitely, normally we think it is halal, right side, right? But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he drew the line, and he said, yes, this right side looks like a halal, but there is some right side things is haram too. Say for example, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, somebody came and said, okay, let me pray Maghrib 2 rakah.
No.
I'm in Safar. Let me pray 2 rakah. What is that dalil? He said, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when you have 4 rakat, you can make it 2. So we have 3 rakah, we can make it 2. So, I mean, if he said, it is good things, right? But it is halal and haram. It's haram, you can't eat it. Once he said halal, you need evidence from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Once he said haram, you need evidence too. So therefore, it's beautiful things it said, everything in this world is halal. Except the things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made haram. Actually, really everything is halal. How many things are haram we know? The things we eat. Pork and some horse. And somebody also eat the horse too. Some very minimum thing. Halal. If you go to the store, you'll see everything halal.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the things. But sometimes on the left side, you think everything is haram. No, there is something also. This haram will protect you from Jahannam. So these are the things. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the tawfiq to learn. We should, what we heard, we have to practice it.
Inshallah.
Very dangerous. 2 people are in always with us. Every day they want to derail us from the right path. One is this one. This one.
This one.
The other one is our nafs.
No.
These 2 of them always just go to the left. When you go in right, he says, go to the right. Go to the right. The right is not good one. He insist to go to the right. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us very good. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for coming. Very good things. This halaqa, this sitting of almost hour, or close to hour. This sitting is a sitting of a Rawdah, a garden of paradise.
I found this on the web for Zasada. Check it out.
You see, they talk on it. You see the chance in it.
Ya go shakara. Amin.
I know you guys are trying to do this.
We're going to go ahead and conclude with recitation So after your study, stay behind a little bit, inshallah. We have some food for you guys to enjoy.
Okay.
Yeah, 15 minutes.
You can actually go ahead and enjoy some food now, inshallah, after the adhan is made.
Okay.
I'm just starting.